Alright, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brandon Cole, and this is somewhat of an experiment. I'm not going to claim to be a video expert, especially video editing, that kind of thing. It's not a thing that I'm good at, because I'm totally blind. If you can't tell, I'm just going to guess this picture is totally terrible and off, and I apologize for that. But one does one's best, and I hope you can forgive me for that. So this is something that I tried to do initially on Periscope, and it didn't get too much traction there. I got a few viewers on there, but it didn't really take off. So I wanted to do it here because initially I wanted to upload my Periscope video to YouTube, but that didn't work out either because I couldn't figure out how that happened. Even if that is possible, but if it is, I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, this is going to be basically an extension, if you will, of the panel, well, my portion of the panel that I was a part of at GDC 2014, the Game Developers Conference 2014. I spoke on a panel about video games and accessibility. And this is kind of a follow-up to that. It's a place where I have a little bit more time to speak, where I'm not limited on what I can say or how much I can say because of, time limits. Got to get the next panel in and all that. So, video games are a huge passion of mine, and that's weird to a lot of people because I'm a blind person. So, why do you like video games? Well, if you're one of my few subscribers and you've looked at my other YouTube videos, then you know that this to be true. You know that video games are definitely my passion, and to answer that question, to answer the question of why I'm so impassioned about video games, all I can really say is, it all started with a joke. And I tell the story a lot, I know. A lot of you have heard this before if you know me, but if you don't, that's who this is kind of for. It all started with a joke my brother played on me when I was young. He basically was playing Super Mario Brothers, the original one, not the original one, but regular Nintendo Super Mario Brothers, and he was like, "Hey, little brother, would you like to play?" And I was like, "No way. Video games are video games. They have the word video in them. I can't possibly take part in that. The word video is in there. That means blind people out." But I decided to give it a shot regardless because I figured, what the heck? The worst that could happen is I would just lose right away and we'd be done. So he hands me a controller. The game begins, and I begin pressing buttons. And before I know it, as far as I know, I'm jumping over pits, saving princesses, defeating enemies, collecting coins, extra lives, everything like that. And I am in shock. I'm like, wait a second. I'm really playing a video game. This is amazing. I didn't think I could do that. Well, the entire game goes by. The entire thing. And when it's over, keep in mind, I'm a child of like 6 or 7. When it's over, my brother calmly tells me, well, actually, I just gave you the second player controller and played a one-player game. So, my contribution to the game was nothing. Nothing at all. But you know what? At the time, I was crushed. I didn't know how to handle that. I had just hit buttons for no reason. But when it came down to it, that experience gave me the drive I needed to say to myself, okay, I was not successful here, but I will be successful someday. I will play a video game on my own someday, and I will win on my own. And so I kept trying video games. I tried several games for the regular Nintendo. I tried, I think, Double Dragon was one. The RoboCop game, which I did not like because I couldn't get very far in it. Not that it was bad, just, I couldn't get very far. And so on and so forth. And eventually I got to the Super Nintendo, and didn't have my own, but stole my brother's for a while, and found fighting games like Killer Instinct. It was my first fighting game, and the first game that I beat on my own. so I played that game religiously, learning the sound effects, learning the combos, learning the characters' moves, and enjoying the fact that I could play it, finding a new connection with video games from that game. And when I finally beat the arcade mode by myself for the very first time, I ran out and told my mother, who knows and cares nothing about video games, the glorious news that I had just won in arcade mode and Killer Instinct. So she dutifully came in and looked at the credits screen and oohed and awed appropriately, but she didn't get it. She no, still to this day doesn't get video games. It's not her thing. Um, but it was nice. It was a good feeling, and it all escalated from there. And now today, I'm still trying video games. I'm still playing video games, especially fighting games. I'm a big fan of Mortal Kombat X, which I have videos of on this same YouTube channel. And yeah, I mean, video games are a huge part of my life now. I mean, it's not just the video games themselves. I've grown to really respect and love the industry, and I would do a lot, to be a part of that industry. So, moving on, I want to say the only thing I don't like about this format is, and the thing I liked about Periscope, is that people could ask me questions live during the Periscope broadcast, but not here, obviously. So, anyway, moving on. Right now, what I'm trying to do these days is advocate for the accessibility of video games for the blind. So many strides are being made in accessibility for different things, like color blindness is a huge thing now. A lot of game developers are implementing colorblind modes, where you can play the game just as equally if you're colorblind. Some games are implementing games for one-switch people, so like the people that can only press one button at any given time can also play games too. MLB The Show is a good example of that. They have a mode just for that. But blindness, total blindness, hasn't really been considered all that much, and the reason's pretty obvious. Developers themselves, for the most part, have the same idea that I had as a 6 or 7-year-old kid. Video games have the word video in them. Video games, by definition, mean video games. Games that you are able to view visually and play. Interact with based on what you see. And that's the emphasis. That's the emphasis. The emphasis is on graphics. Audio has improved a great deal in many, many, many years of video games. But the graphics are still the front-running thing. It's still the standard is not based on the audio design. It's based on graphics. And it's there's not a whole lot of consideration for the blind. Now, that's not entirely that's there is some consideration. For instance, Mortal Kombat X I just mentioned has a mode that Injustice: Gods Among Us, another game developed by NetherRealm Studios, also has, and it basically makes little audio cues happen when you're near an environmental interactable object in Mortal Kombat and Injustice. There's these things around the fighting arenas you can throw around or use to move across the arena really quickly, or things of that nature. And there's a mode now in both of those games that you can activate that will alert us to when we're near one of those things, or when our opponent is near one of those things too. So that was made just for blind people. So that's some consideration. There's another game, Skullgirls. The PC version of that game was modified to allow all text, including the tutorial text and the training mode text and the story mode text, to be sent to the clipboard using a screen reader and clipboard reading software that interacts with the screen reader, which basically causes everything that appears in the clipboard, every time the clipboard receives new text, that text is automatically read. Using that, we now suddenly have fully voiced, by a synthesizer, but still fully voiced, speaking interactive menus for things, and again, the story text and so on. That is huge. That turned a game... Fighting games, by their very nature, are about 95% accessible as it is, but that pushed that 95 all the way up to 100, because now we had access to everything. We had access to the move lists. We had access to the training menus. I mean, all the things, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of things that sighted people who, even sighted people who play fighting games, just take for granted. like the ability to pull up a move list while they're in a fight. And in that game, at least in the PC version, we can now do that. So that's a pretty big deal for us too. There are games that have been made just for blind people. There are a group of groups of people who make games that are just audio games. A lot of those developers are blind themselves, but not all. And so we have our own niche development group. But those games, and I mean no offense, because for what they are, the games that are made just for blind people are really great. I mean no offense to anyone by this, but those games do not stack up in some ways even close to the games of the modern mainstream era. I can't tell you, I can't explain what I wouldn't give to play Dragon Age, to play Mass Effect, to play any of Telltale's incredible games, all the way from The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Tales from the Borderlands, Monkey Island. I don't care. I don't care. Just the games that have story like that are so rare in terms of what we blind people can play that, I would give a lot to just to be able to play one of those games, I think. If I was given Walking Dead Season 1 and said, and told, hey, by the way, this is accessible now, you should totally play it, I would play it. I'm not going to lie, I would probably play the thing all the way through, all 10 hours or so of that game, straight through, because I wouldn't be able to stop myself, because I can play this game now, wow, amazing, shocked, awed, appropriately stunned. It would be huge. It would be gigantic. But it's just not happening, and that's because the word is taking a while to get out there. Now, I feel that during my presentation at the Game Developers Conference and during an award that I actually received an award from the Game Audio Network Guild for my recognition and support, I guess, of audio in video games. And when I gave a speech for that award, and that speech got a standing ovation from 500 people in the game industry, and that was important, not just for me, not just because of the speech itself. The speech itself was good. I enjoyed it. I like getting standing ovations. It's a thing. But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that I reached 500 people in the gaming industry. I made people think about what I was saying. I made people think, hey, maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad to give accessibility for the blind a shot. And that's what I want. See, every single time I hear someone else play a game that I can't play, and that happens a lot, let me tell you. Every single time I hear someone play a game that I cannot participate in at all, I come up with ideas. I think to myself, okay, I can't play this game, but here is what would have to happen that would allow me to play it. I always think of ideas like this. Telltale series of games are a good example of that. Like, with all the Telltale games, they're basically point-and-click adventure games. So I came up with an idea where every currently visible interactive object, meaning that things that are meant to be hidden in a room can remain hidden until they're supposed to be revealed. So everything currently visible would be presented in a list that we could navigate through. Blind people could navigate through using maybe arrow keys or something like that. And every time we move from object to object, the name of the object would be spoken. So if we wanted to interact with it, we just select it. And then that object would be activated as if it had been clicked on. That would clear up most of the game for accessibility. That would make most of the game playable. Conversational choices, especially in Telltale games, would then also have to be spoken as we move through the different options. And QuickTime events. Again, Telltale games does that a lot, so QuickTime events. Those would be, to keep the challenge factor, the button we would need to press for a QuickTime event should also be spoken, but spoken pretty much at the same time it appears on screen, so the challenge factor is still there. Can we press the button fast enough? And that's it. Do that, and all of those games are accessible. All of them. That's all you need to do. Like, but there's things to consider. Like the thing that game developers, and I've spoken to several now, especially at GDC while I was there, the thing that game developers always bring up is cost, and I completely understand that. New developments on games do cost money. Um, there is not really a counter to that, because even I have to admit that the blind are a small market. But on the other hand, this still isn't really a counter, but it is a consideration. If a developer takes that chance, says, okay, we will try this. We will try to include the blind. Even if it costs us a little bit more to develop the game, we'll give it a shot. Number one, yes, small though we are, they are going to get more sales. Because I, for one, I kind of proclaim myself an advocate for accessibility in video games. So I would totally publicize the crap out of a game that was, modified for the blind, as I have before with Skullgirls and with Mortal Kombat and Injustice. So, number one, they get more sales. Number two, there's the publicity factor. If you do something like this, something different, something that no one else is doing, that's how you get noticed. And I'm telling you, people that took the time to give this a shot, and people that took the time to make sure this was successful, would get noticed for doing it. They would be praised, I think, for doing it, for an inclusion that just hasn't happened a lot in today's modern video gaming world. It just hasn't happened a lot. So that's my goal. That's my goal. My goal is to keep talking about this, keep talking about video games, keep talking about accessibility for video games, and try to convince developers, and this is kind of my catchphrase now, I guess, but I'm basically trying to convince developers that, hey, we are blind gamers, we are out here, and we want to play too. We can play some games, but the amount of games we can play compared to those we can't play is so staggering that it feels like it's not enough. We don't have the wide selection that the rest of the world has. And I'm not see, one problem with something like this is it may look like I'm trying to go for sympathy here. I'm not. I don't mind, I'm not trying to go for sympathy because I'm blind. Blindness is not a hindrance to me. You know what I'm saying? I have made the best of the blindness that I have. It's a condition. I've made the best of it. I have risen to the top not the top, but I've risen up in the place where I work. I've made my mark on people, and most recently on the gaming industry, because I feel that I'm entertaining, and that I think I have things to share, and I have talent. In fact, I'll mention this here too. My ultimate dream, as much as I want to be involved in the video game industry, the best way to me that I could be involved, my ultimate dream is to be a professional voice actor. That's what I've always wanted. And I've been told that I could do it. In fact, I almost did it. But that's another story for another time. But hopefully that's another thing that's going to happen for me in the future. But I'm not going for sympathy here. I'm just simply saying that video games are important to me, and they're important to other blind gamers out there, just as they are important to many, many sighted people in today's world. Millions of people love video games today, and I'm one of those people. But I'm just myself and all the other blind gamers. We're trapped right now. We're trapped with the games we are stuck playing because we can't play the other games that everyone else is playing. Again, Dragon Age, huge RPG. BioWare, I love them. But only because I've heard other people play their games, not because I've played their games, because I can't play their games. I can't play a single one of them. But, once again, ideas. I have ideas. I can tell developers how they can make a game accessible. And oftentimes, it's not the way they think. I guarantee it. Because let me bring up this ridiculous little thing that I heard about. I think I read about it in an article. I probably couldn't find it right now to link to it in the description or anything like that, but let me talk about this. Apparently, at some point, Rockstar, the developers of Grand Theft Auto 5 and the other Grand Theft Autos, but for this example, Grand Theft Auto 5, was approached about accessibility. Their response was something like this, and this isn't word for word, but it's something like this. Development of Grand Theft Auto 5 cost $240 million. To make the game accessible and build all the systems we need to build, it would cost $128 million on top of that. So no, we're not going to do it. Okay, now, I have acknowledged that yes, making a game accessible will cost money. There's no getting around that. And yes, Grand Theft Auto 5, being the monstrous game that it is, would cost, a sizable amount of money, more than some games. Grand Theft Auto 5 would cost more than Telltale games to make it accessible. Yes, I acknowledge that. But $128 million? No. No. I do not for 1 second accept or believe that. I believe that a Rockstar representative of some kind was pulling a number out of a hat to make it seem impossible. Because I don't think that they actually know what they would need to do to make it accessible. So, even if it's not me, the primary thing that I would say to developers out there would be to ask us, even if it's not me, ask a blind person, if you are at least considering giving this a shot. If you say to yourself, maybe we'll actually give this a try. Don't dismiss it because you have these ideas of what we need to make a game accessible. Because the games we can play are accessible for reasons that would probably surprise you. Like, there are surprises in the games we can play. Resident Evil 6, for instance, is almost entirely playable by blind people. And that probably surprises a lot of people. It has in the past. Every time I mention it, it surprises somebody. It's not entirely playable, but almost entirely playable. And I think people believe that blind people need more things output to us than we actually do. Like, people think that blind people need so much information, like audio describe all of the rooms that you go. No. We don't need that. There's things we need, but we don't need as much information, I think, as developers seem to think we do. But anyway, if there's a game developer out there who is thinking maybe making a video game accessible for a blind person would be a fantastic, feather in our cap. Maybe it's something we should give a try. Don't just try it without consulting with a blind person. It doesn't have to be me, although I'd really like it if it was. But it doesn't have to be. There's plenty of blind people who want to play video games out there. There's plenty of blind people who already do play the games that we can play out there. So any of us. And, consult with us. We'll help you. If it's, we'll try to make the game as accessible for everyone as we possibly can. And we have no desire to infringe on anyone else's gameplay. Any accessibility features that we helped add for blind people would probably be locked behind their own accessibility mode in the game, and that's fine. All we need is an easy way to activate it. Make it a combination of keys. If it's a PC game, make it Control-Shift-A for accessibility to activate the accessibility mode. Something like that. Or, in the past, in video games as they are now, we memorize menus a lot. It's part of gaming for a blind person. We memorize gaming, the main menus of games all the time. So make us memorize a menu. We can memorize one. If we only have to memorize one to turn on accessibility, so be it. That's fine. We don't want to hinder anyone else. We just want to play too. And that's my goal. And I wanted to talk about that because I hope to be doing multiple videos like this where I'm just talking, along with some gameplay videos here and there as well. I'm not going to be as prevalent as the Let's Players out there, but, where I can, I'll probably post some footage of a game that I can play. I do have one topic. The videos I'm going to do from now on, now that I've kind of gotten the introduction out of the way, at least as far as I'm concerned, will be kind of more topic specific. And so I wanted to throw a topic into this video as well, as kind of an introduction as to the way I'm going to be handling this in the future. The topic I want to talk about in this video is a game that is on Kickstarter right now. And I won't take too much time on this because I know this has been a long video already. But there's a game that's being Kickstarter funded right now. It's called Perception. You may have heard of it, you may have not heard of it. But if you haven't, look it up. It's a great concept. It's a fantastic concept. The concept is it's a survival horror game where you take the role of a blind woman and you have to find your way through this apparently haunted house or haunted manor. And, you collect things along the way, like any survival horror game, audio logs and things like that. And, there's enemies you have to run away from, and, so on and so forth. But what makes it interesting is the fact that it's from a blind woman's perspective. And here's the thing. Currently, it is not a game that is being made so blind people can play it. Now, I don't know if anyone that's watching this video, I don't know if anyone's having the same reaction that I had when I first found that out. And that reaction is this. If blind people can't play a game that takes place from the perspective of a blind person, then the game does not take place from the perspective of a blind person. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense to me to have a game where you take control of a blind person and not allow the blind to play the game. That's like saying, hey, this woman's actually Daredevil. She was doused with chemicals as a child and can now see the things that she can't see as soon as she hears them. Essentially, that's what this is. The sighted player taps the blind woman's cane, and a visual representation of the sound bouncing off of things appears. That's how you see the world around you. But it still relies on the sighted person having vision, which to me makes no sense if you're controlling a blind person. So, right now, as of right now, I'm not gonna lie, I backed the project because this is what we have to do. We have to have hope that messages like this get out there. And right now, they have mentioned accessibility for the blind. They've mentioned it. However, they've mentioned it in the capacity of, well, actually, we're not sure if we can do this because it would represent so many design changes, but we haven't given up yet. Now, again, if this game comes out and blind people can't play it, I can't see anyone saying that, yes, I totally felt like a blind person while I played this game. Because you can still see in the game. You just have to tap to be able to do it. Tap the cane, hear the ringing off the walls. Oh, but then I can see them. I don't hate the game. I really don't. I want to love it so much. But I think with a game like this, if this was another game, I wouldn't be so uppity about this. I really wouldn't. Any other game, I'm not trying to force accessibility on anyone. I would like to be contacted by developers and said, asked, hey, we have this game. How can we make it accessible so the blind can enjoy it as well? I would like that. But at the same time, I know I can't force it on anyone. I want people to hear my message. I hope people listen. I hope people take heart in what I'm saying. But I won't try. I'm not trying to shove it down anyone's throat. But with a game like this, where the claim of the game, the claim is that you play the game from a blind person's perspective, I feel like it's got to happen. We have to be able to play this game, or that's a lie. So if the game comes out and that's not a thing, I will probably, or at least if the game comes out and that's not like a pending thing, okay, maybe the game gets released and it's not implemented yet, but it's planned, and there are talks. Like I said, doesn't have to be with me. Would appreciate it if it was. Doesn't have to be with me. But if there are talks, if there are plans to implement accessibility for the blind, fine. But if they give up when the game comes out, then I think I would regret backing the project. And I hate to say that, because everything about this game screams greatness. The voice acting is great. The idea is great. Seems like the writing's great. Like the voice acting itself is helped along by the dialogue that's been written for it. But there are things that I think just, in this game's case, they just need to be done. And that's my opinion on that. Again, my opinion, not trying to hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. I just, I mean, let's be honest. I don't know how many people are going to watch this video. In my perfect world, this video would go viral, and this would start talks all throughout the globe, all across the globe, about video game accessibility for the blind. But, the world isn't perfect. So who knows? Maybe 12 people will watch this. But even if 12 people watch it, and if 12 people listen to it, I will be happy with that. If 12 people listen to it and think, yeah, he's not such a bad guy. Maybe games should be accessible. Maybe everyone should be able to play games. That'd be awesome. Because ultimately, I'm just trying to get the message out there, spread the message a little bit. And I think that's where we're going to end this video. Again, I'm sorry for the picture quality. I'm no expert with a camera, and I'm sure that shows. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to anyone who watched, because anyone who watched this whole thing is awesome. Because at least they're willing to listen to this. So thank you, and I'll probably see you around. Maybe gameplay videos, maybe more of this. We'll see. Have a wonderful day.